I get asked all the time, what are some watches that every collector needs to own? And so today I wanted to present to you my top 5 watches that every single watch collector has to own at some point or another in their watch collection. So let's get right into it. Before the video starts, I'd really appreciate if you drop a like on this video and let me know down in the comments any videos you'd like to see from me here on the Burdeen's YouTube channel. I'm so proud of the work that we've done. We've just hit over 5,000 subscribers and I'm really trying to get to 10,000 before the end of the year if it's totally possible. I know it's a lofty goal, but all of your help is totally appreciated. Thank you so much, guys. So when it comes to watch collecting, I feel there are those staple pieces that every single collector needs to own at some point or another in their watch collection journey just to experience it for themselves. Of course, these don't have to be long-term keepers in your overall collection, but you have to get a kind of sense and style and just overall feel for the watch just to ultimately own it, right? That ownership experience is probably the most important factor in how you really decide if you like a watch or not, right? At the end of the day, you can wear a watch on wrist that feels really good, and then after a couple of weeks, it doesn't feel as good, and maybe you don't vibe with the watch. It happens all the time, right? And so the idea is owning that watch is super, super important to your overall experience, and I think also your overall journey in watch collecting. And so these are kind of my top 5, starting number 1 with the Omega Speedmaster. Now there's a ton of variations, my personal preference being the Ed White 321 Speedmaster, just because it's an amazing historical re-edition, but I love also just the Speedmaster Professional, and of course all the different iterations. There's a ton you can get at a variety of price points, case sizes, all that kind of good stuff, be it Broad Arrow Speedmasters, limited edition Apollo Speedmasters, the Racing Speedmasters. There's so much variety within the Speedmaster range that you can really tailor it to your specific needs in watch collection. But of course, the Speedmaster is that all-time classic wristwatch. I think it's the most iconic chronograph of all time. A watch that started out as a racing chronograph, but later, of course, became the moon watch due to the fact that it was the first watch worn on the moon. Now, again, I think it's one of those quintessential watches every single collector needs to own. I own personally a 321 Speedmaster. It was just an amazing, amazing wristwatch, and I miss it dearly. And I think about owning another Speedmaster all the time, and even buying back the 321 Ed White. But at the end of the day, my experience with the Speedmaster was amazing and something that I truly, truly enjoyed, and I think was really important in my overall development collecting journey, just because it's one of those quintessential classics every single collector needs to try out, again, in any variation. Whether you're getting a Speedmaster reduced all the way to, for example, limited edition Platinum Speedmaster with meteorite subdials, it really doesn't matter. You truly cannot go wrong with any variation. Next up is a luxury dive watch. Now the dive watch is probably the most famous and I would say also the most collected category of watches out there in the broad watch market, right? There's such a variety of dive watches out there. Now I pinpoint luxury dive watches, and when I say that, I'm talking about brands from like Tudor, Omega, Rolex, even potentially Blancpain, all those kind of brands. Of course, there's divers at way lower price points that pack a lot of punch from the likes of, you can get it, for example, from Monta, which makes some amazing watches. You can even get some from Tissot, Hamilton, and the like. There's a ton of dive watches out there that are really, really amazing, but I say a luxury dive watch because for the most part, the build quality and also just the overall design and aesthetic you'll get is just a little bit more superior, in my personal opinion. And you're gonna have one of those all-time classics, be it a Black Bay 58, an Omega Seamaster, a Rolex Submariner, a Blancpain 50 Fathoms, or anything kind of in that genre of historical dive watches or recognizable dive watch designs, I would say, really, that are super important, classic watches, things that you can wear all the time in any situation. They're never out of place, and it's the ultimate do anything, go anywhere kind of watch. I think owning a luxury dive watch is an incredibly impactful and important experience. I own personally a No Date Submariner. For a short period, I even owned a Tudor Black Bay 58. Both were amazing, amazing wristwatches, but ultimately I ended up going for a GMT Master 2 as my long-term keeper because I just felt it was slightly better for me personally in my lifestyle because I do travel quite a bit, and also just because I like the overall look and feel of a GMT Master 2 as well. But there's no doubt about it, my experience with the Submariner and of course the Tudor Black Bay 58 was important in my personal watch collecting journey because they're two of the most recognizable and two of the best dive watches one can get. I really like Omega's new release of the Omega Speedmaster with the black dial and no-day version on the mesh bracelet. That's one I'm definitely going to take a close look at once we get one here in stock at Burdeen's Jewelry. We are an authorized seller of Omega, and it's one I'm thinking about adding to my personal collection. I'm a huge fan of the No Time to Die Seamaster, but I don't love necessarily titanium watches. They just feel a little bit too light for me, but I'm hoping that this one just fits all the bills and has all the bells and whistles that I'm particularly looking for. And I like the fact that it doesn't have any kind of faux patina. It's really a modern wristwatch with modern build quality and proportion. So again, I really think a dive watch, a luxury dive watch in particular, is a quintessential addition to any watch collection and any collector's journey because it is just that staple piece that you could wear every day and that I think is just that super recognizable and perfect everyday daily wear. My next one was going to be a G-Shock, but I'm actually going to broaden it to really just include anything from Casio. I think everybody has to own a Casio wristwatch at some point or another, be it a Casio calculator all the way up to somebody crazy like me who buys a Mr. G G-Shock, which are in excess of $3,000 to $4,000 in some cases, and you can even get some in the tens of thousands of dollars depending on the variation. I think you just have to own a Casio at some point, right? It's just that quintessential beater watch, super recognizable, probably the best value watches out there on the market, point blank period. And I was a Casio hater for a very long time. I say that objectively speaking. And once I owned my Mr. G G-Shock, it really completely changed my perspective on Casio altogether. I didn't really like the lower end stuff for the most part, but I totally understand and realize why people love it so much. Maybe it's not a watch for me personally, but they pack so much value, so much functionality, and ultimately serve the purpose, in my opinion, of really getting collectors into the hobby and also just giving a lot of enjoyment for a really bargain price point, right? Whether you're a seasoned collector with 10 watches, getting that incredible beater Casio for $100, $200 that really can do anything and take a huge beating and you can wear in any situation, where you're like, just get so much enjoyment out of it because you're not really worried about babying it or damaging it. Plus, this thing is bulletproof. You could probably throw it against a wall and it will not take any damage, which is just exceptional. Casio makes some of the best value watches out there. I'm a big fan of the brand. I own personally a Mr. G G-Shock, and it's a long-term keeper, something I probably will never sell and will never leave my collection. And I think at every single point of a watch collector's lifetime, and I would say owning one Casio in the collection probably is a must for most watch collectors. Next up in that same vein is what I would consider to be the king of value proposition, or at least it was always the king of value proposition for mechanical wristwatches in my mind, and that is Seiko. I think every collector needs to own some kind of a Seiko, or its derivation of it, the Orient. I think it's a sister company or it's owned by Seiko. And I would say that it's super important because it's one of those all-time great beater watches, mechanical watches at a super affordable price point. Of course, depending on the variation you're getting, there's huge discrepancies in terms of like the entry-level models to the high-end, Grand Seiko and Creedor. But I think owning a Japanese wristwatch, just having the ability to see the incredible finishing and the just incredible movements they're able to achieve for such affordable price points in some cases is really spectacular. And I think everybody needs to own a Seiko at some point in their collection. Now, I've never owned a Seiko personally. My actual first wristwatch, my first mechanical wristwatch, was an Orient Explorer. So technically I've owned a derivation of a Seiko. And you know what? That was the watch that kind of got me into watches. The first time that I turned that watch over, looked at the movement and saw mechanical movement for the first time, I fell in love. And man, it's been a crazy journey ever since now, going almost 10 years. I was 16 when I bought that watch, 25 now. So it's pretty incredible to think about. And again, that value is just there when it comes to Orient, Seiko, and those kind of Japanese brands that I think pack so much value for what you're getting overall. And last but certainly not least, maybe a bit of a controversial one, but I think that every single watch collector has to experience this watch brand at some point in their watch collecting journey, and that is owning a Rolex. That doesn't matter what the watch is, a Datejust, a vintage Datejust, an Oyster Perpetual, a vintage Oyster Perpetual, Submariner, new, modern, vintage, doesn't matter. I think you have to own any Rolex at some point in your watch collecting journey. It's like that stamp of not just you made it, but to a certain extent, I think Rolex is such a recognizable name, and if not for anything else, just to say that you've owned a Rolex to really see whether or not you like the brand. I of course own the GMT Master 2, the Batgirl. I absolutely love this watch. I'm going on 4 years now of ownership, and I can say this: if I had to sell every single watch I've ever owned or handled and only keep one, for me, it is the Batgirl. It is the perfect do anything, go anywhere kind of watch. Extremely functional, goes with everything in that blue-black color scheme. And again, I've owned a Submariner, phenomenal watch, no date sub. I've owned, even at one point a Daytona, stainless steel Daytona. It wasn't the watch for me, but it's an amazing experience just to own it and have that experience that you can ultimately provide feedback on, and just know for your personal collection whether it's for you or not. So again, I don't care if it's vintage, modern, neo-vintage, and any really collection. I would tell you have to own a Rolex. So guys, those are my top 5 watches every single watch collector I think needs to own at some point in their watch collecting journey. Let me know what you think down in the comments below of my list. Are there any watches that you would include to this or you feel should have been added to the list? I always love to get your feedback. As always, guys, I'd really appreciate if you like the video, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. My name is Marco for Burdeen's Jewelry, and I'll see you in the next one.